Welcome to Live Ball, presented by Harper Volkswagen. Here are your hosts, Paige Dauer and Todd Kelly Jr.
Good morning, college football fans. Tennessee, they're hitting the road later today, leaving the roar of Neyland for the ring of cowbells in Starkville. And make no mistake, this one, it matters. Playoff hopes are made on razor-thin margins, and this one, it'll be a razor-thin game for sure. So for the Vols, Mississippi State, it's not just a must-win. It's a must-survive, must-fix for quarterback Blake Shelton of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. He is poised to challenge Tennessee in this game, and with a gauntlet ahead for the Vols, I don't think they're going to be able to afford to lose this one. Paige Dauer, VFL Todd Kelly Jr., it's the Live Ball. When we look to this game, TK, and we can maybe rewind a little bit to last week too, there were a lot of areas where Tennessee really emphasized details. They executed on those details, and I think that's what games like UAB mean for Tennessee, is to get better in those details. What did you notice about Tennessee in that game?
Yeah, Paige, what I really liked was the amount of rushing yards we allowed, only 23, right? We had 3 sacks, 9 TFLs, getting behind the line of scrimmage and making explosive plays. We forced turnovers. We scored a touchdown. Everything that you want against a lesser-tiered opponent, we saw that. So I was super excited. And, oh, by the way, that tempo of the offense, it continued, just like we saw against Georgia, ETSU, Syracuse. They were able to do that against UAB. So tomorrow, it's a big opportunity on the road at 4:15 to see if you can continue your offensive dominance while also allowing your defense to have another opportunity. We dropped the ball against Georgia. I think at times the defense had the opportunity to get off the field, which we'll talk about later. But the defense has to show up. The offense has done their thing time and time again. Defense travels.
Yeah.
And here on the road in Starkville, Mississippi, we'll see if that's the case. Yeah,
you mentioned the touchdown from the defense. It was a nice punch out by Boo Carter. How tough is it to actually make that play happen when you kind of have this loose ball? Your defense made a nice play, and you want to go and get that scoop and score, which before Syracuse, Tennessee hadn't done since 2023. So here we now have 2-1 season already.
It's huge, and you practice that during individual drills, and it may seem monotonous when you're doing it over and over, but when you see that ball and you see the opportunity, it's muscle memory, and you're either punching the ball out, starting the mower. It's one of the two or many things. You're just going after that ball, and there's no secret that Boo Carter lives around the ball. He wants to be around it. Muff to punt, which, he's a playmaker.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to get with Boo. You're going to get big plays and sometimes mistakes, but overall I think he had a great game. So we're going to have to continue to force turnovers tomorrow if we want to win this ball game.
Yeah, we talked about razor-thin margins to start the show, and that could be an example where it is that razor-thin margin against ETSU. Boo Carter really gave Tennessee nice short fields, and the offense was able to take advantage. And you talk about him being a playmaker. What's the battle you go through mentally where maybe it looks like an obvious fair catch signal, but you maybe want to go and catch the ball and get some extra yardage? Mentally, what's that battle when you're making that decision?
Well, putting Boo Carter back there, he's the best punt returner we have, which is why they have him back there, obviously. But you've got to have some maturity as an underclassman that is still trying to prove his worth, right? Maybe validate himself to his teammates that, he has a presence, has a role. Boo Carter's going to try to make a play, and it's on rare occasion he's going to, fair catch a ball. But you can't do that at times, specifically in big games. I get he can get away with that versus a lesser-tiered opponent. But on Mississippi State, tomorrow, we've got to make plays, limit turnovers, and force turnovers.
Yeah, absolutely. When we go to maybe a little areas that concerned you after that game, and again, I think all of it is in the details, and sometimes you'll hear coaches and they're like, oh, it's just the little things, we're almost there. And I'm like, but isn't that the hardest part? They try to maybe have it a throwaway comment, but I'm like, those details are the absolute difference maker and are the toughest things to learn. So in the details, what concerned you?
Big plays, specifically through the air. I mentioned that, we only gave up 23 rushing yards against UAB, but passing yards-wise, we almost gave up 400 yards, and that's just unacceptable. That was from explosive plays, but also sustained drives. So when you're going on the road, you really want to silence the crowd, silence those cowbells, and minimize the momentum that the home team has. And when you give up a 14-play drive, right, which we did against UAB for a touchdown, that gives all the momentum to the home team. And so, unfortunately, we saw in Neyland Stadium last weekend that the crowd was silenced, and UAB got pretty excited on some of those drives. So you got to get off the field as a defense. And then our depth. You know, I think we have to understand and accept that injuries are injuries.
Yeah.
If you're in, you're in, and you need to step up. So whoever's in there, they have to understand that they're on that field for a reason. And whether they came in thinking they were third or fourth string, hey, here you are. You're on the road. It's your first SEC game. Yeah. And by golly, tomorrow they better be ready.
Yeah, I mean, Hypo made a huge emphasis to play like a dozen young guys against UAB, hopefully probably to get those reps so those mistakes don't happen against Mississippi State. But how hard is it mentally to be like, my name might get called, I might not be ready, we're lacking in depth, we have all this injury, but you have to be ready for your moment. How tough is it to be ready for your moment?
Well, I lived it, and I started as a freshman. We played at Oklahoma in Norman, and I made a huge error, busted a coverage, they scored a touchdown. So all week I focused on my assignments, my alignment, things I could control. Didn't start that following week. It was our first away game playing Georgia away in Athens, and I knew my name would be called. I didn't know when, but when it did, I had to answer to the bell. And that's when I got my first interception, in my collegiate career. So these guys have to be ready. It doesn't matter what classification you are. When your name's called, that's what you put the work in for. So you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I think a lot of those young guys got that experience. Some got exposed, but they're going to be ready this week. Yeah,
how important will that be for next week? Like, is there a certain player that you looked to last week that you're like, okay, he showed some signs of improvement? I know Jalen McMurray talked a lot about Ty Redmond and maybe the growth he made after Georgia picked on him the week prior, and just how much he kind of had that same mentality where it's like, I got to keep working. I got to keep the confidence. I got to get back to my fundamentals. For him, it's getting his head turned around. Is there a player right now that you're kind of keeping your eye out on that's the younger player that we might see?
So for me, it's Caleb Beasley.
Okay.
He showed up. He was a first year last year, and you take your biggest leaps from year one to year two. For him to score a touchdown against his, former high school head coach, you can't dial that up any better, right, Paige? And so, if a DB goes down, they're going to shift and move, and whatever that looks like, whether that's putting Jalen McMurray from the star to the corner or, moving around Boo Carter, Caleb Beasley is going to have a presence. I think we've invested a lot of time in him, and he's worked on his game. And, for him to have a huge play like that, I think is amazing. But we'll see how he does against Mississippi State on the road because we're going to need him.
Yeah, and we're going to get a little bit more into Caleb Beasley and really kind of what that defensive line looks like for Tennessee. We'll also go to Mississippi State to one of their beat reporters to see what he thinks will be the difference maker for Mississippi State because it's a must-win for Tennessee. We'll be right back.
Your business can't afford the downtime that comes with a leaky roof. So whether you need a repair or a replacement, count on the professionals from McGuire Roofing and Construction. Your protection is our passion. We service and sell all types of roofs and have worked with some of East Tennessee's most recognized names. We have 25 years of experience and free inspection estimates, plus best in business warranties. Put an end to your roofing problems today by calling McGuire Roofing and Construction.
Yeah, he's a playmaker. Probably the fastest quarterback that we've played against so far, and they like to use him in all phases of the game. And it's going to be a great challenge for us, but we're really excited.
Welcome back into Live Ball. Paige Dauer, VFL, Todd Kelly Jr. This could be a very emotional game for Tennessee. Like, it's the first true road game for the Volunteers. The first time Joey Aguilar in that offense is really going to be challenged. You could go to the neutral site game they had at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but that was dominated by the Volunteer orange, not the Syracuse orange. So it'll be a challenge in so many other ways. And if we want to start with Joey Aguilar, a lot will come down to communication on offense, his composure in the pocket, or just to be able to extend plays, and then dealing with the cowbell. So I guess it's the 3 C's now that I say it out loud: communication, cowbells, and composure. So when we maybe looked at this matchup, like, what is the difference between like a neutral site game for a new quarterback and then going on the road in the SEC for a new quarterback?
Hostility, no doubt about it. It's a hostile environment. I mean, they thrive on their fans being there, shaking those cowbells, and that messes with your composure, right? But I think that Joey Aguilar is more than fit for this opportunity to show why he's moving up the Heisman ranks, right? And could be a finalist by the end of the year. I think he probably will be, hint, hint, towards the future. But I'm excited for Joey in this opportunity. I think just how he's embraced being the leader of this offense, how he trusts his players to, specifically his receivers, to go up and make plays for him. They're really going to test that defensive backfield that Mississippi State has. And if it's anybody, Mississippi State's defensive backfield is going to be ready for the test.
Yeah, and we'll talk to a beat writer covering the Mississippi State Bulldogs to talk about this Bulldogs secondary, because I'm thinking that's the key matchup, at least from the Bulldogs perspective. But what I think for Joey Aguilar, you could go back to 2023 when he was at App State. That was technically his best season. He was 3-4 for the away games. That was his final record, but a couple of those ended up being overtime losses, one to North Carolina, one to James Madison. That was number 18 at the time of the meeting. So those are close games. Like, he did enough even then to give his team a chance to win. Now we've seen what they've done with the wide receivers. Even though Mississippi State is the 14th best pass defense in the country, I still think the playmaking ability that Joey has with his legs to extend plays and then get the ball downfield, I think is a sneaky factor.
It is, and Joey's ready for this challenge. This is what he asked for. This is why he came to the University of Tennessee. And not only has Joey, been around that 500 range, so is Josh Heupel. And Coach Heupel has won games at home, but, the elephant in the room is, can Josh Heupel win on the road? So between Heupel, Aguilar, the offense we have, and the defense that is going to show up because defense travels, I really, really think we're going to get a taste tomorrow of why Joey Aguilar wanted to come here and be the Tennessee quarterback.
Yeah, and some of that might even start with the center for Tennessee and how important communication is. I mean, Josh Heupel talked about that at length on Monday. And when you're on the road, that's where the cowbells come into effect. And what have you maybe noticed for Tennessee up until this point when it does come down to the communication or like having decent snaps and then, allowing – what I've noticed, one, there haven't been as many false starts. Is that the biggest part of, communication, just being on the same page? Or where do you see communication, helping this team?
It is, and your communication is tested on the road as an offense. I think defensively it's a whole lot easier to communicate, which we'll see, tomorrow. But at times, everything's not going to go the way it's supposed to go, and you're going to get flustered. And that neutral game was really a home game for the University of Tennessee. Yeah. The crowd was about 95 to 5% Tennessee to Syracuse. So this is a true test. I like the test. Mississippi State hasn't folded yet. They won a big game against Arizona State that I think was an overlooked victory for them. So make no mistake about it. They're undefeated and have an intention to give all they have. And as I mentioned, prior, they have this game circled, because this is a huge way to, show what you're made of in the SEC this season.
Right, because I think for Tennessee, you look at the gauntlet of a schedule that they have. They share 3 common opponents with Mississippi State. So not only do you not want this to be the loss on the record for Tennessee, you also want the win to age really well with how Mississippi State will look against those common opponents, especially for the larger picture of the playoff race, because nothing is more fragile than your spot there. And what could help Tennessee in that effort is what they'll get from the front 7.
Yes, the front 7 is going to make or break this game in my eyes. The rushing attack of Mississippi State, that's what they rely on. They're a balanced offense, similar to us, but rather than, focusing on the air game, they live and die by their rushing attack. So the front 7, starting with Dominique Bailey and Bryson Eason up front, Jeremiah T-Lander and Arion Carter, these are big games for them. And putting your nose in there, too, the nickel position is going to be big, showing up during the run game. Fluff Bothwell, make no mistake about it, there's no fluff, right? He's coming. They're going to feed him off. And Blake Shapen, he's a dual-threat quarterback looking to run if nobody's open. So we'll see if we plaster, our DB stay on receivers at times where, the play might break down, but Blake Shapen gets out there and tries to make a play or tucks it and runs. We got to get off the field on 3rd down, and that's only going to happen if we show up in the front 7.
Yeah, and all of that leads to our squeeze and where a lot of the focus will be on for the Tennessee football team. We'll be right back.
I'm VFL Chris Brown. Experience the VW brand proudly being produced in the great state of Tennessee. Harper Volkswagen is a proud partner of Tennessee Athletics. Go Vols!
Yeah, he's a playmaker. Probably the fastest quarterback that we've played against so far, and they like to use him in all phases of the game. And it's going to be a great challenge for us, but we're really excited.
TK said it a moment ago, make no mistake about it. It really will come down to the defense in this game for the Tennessee Volunteers. And if I could put the squeeze on anybody, I'm going to put it on Jalen McMurray. He's a very versatile player for Tennessee, whether you put him at star, nickel, wherever you want him on the field. Like, he is a playmaker. And Josh Heupel had a ton of praise for him after the UAB game, and specifically not only in the eye discipline and all the technicalities, but in his ability to put his nose in it. To have a coach say that about, like, your defensive player, like, please explain, like, how nice of a compliment that is.
Oh, that's huge. That means you don't lack the ideology of making physical contact with the offensive opponent, right? And so being able to put your nose in there means you're not scared to not only be in, pass coverage, but come up, make a hit, be physical, get your hands, on whoever's blocking you, shed that block, and show up and do something about it.
Because I think what Jalen McMurray did is exactly what you were calling for a couple of weeks ago, where what frustrated you or frustrated us is, like, it looked like the linebackers were almost like waiting for the play to come to them. But Jalen McMurray really makes it seem like he attacks the play.
Yes, and you've got to be aggressive. When you look at the star position, otherwise known as the nickel position, you think of some of the best that have played it. One in particular was Tyrann Mathieu at LSU, the Honey Badger. Not only was he making interceptions and returning punts, but he was showing up. He was making TFLs, right, which is what Jalen McMurray, number 6, is doing. And so when you play that star position, you've got to be willing to put your nose in there, be physical, and show up. Sometimes there's guards that are going to block you, right? You're basically engaged with huge offensive linemen, but guess what? Like, I'm ready for it, so that's what putting your nose in it means. And I think Jalen McMurray understands the opportunity he has tomorrow to do that. Yeah,
and with the compliment of his eye discipline, I think that's huge in regards to containing a quarterback that, yes, he runs the ball, but it's not necessarily like run designs. It's a lot of scrambles that Blake Shapen does, and I think that might be the area where Jalen McMurray has a lot of success.
I think so, and I think, too, Tim Banks more than likely has some more blitz packages than he has prior, knowing that Jalen McMurray is willing to put his nose in there. So make no mistake about it, whether it's, sliding inside the guard or the tackle or coming off the edge, I think we'll see Jalen McMurray coming after Blake Shapen a lot when it comes to tomorrow's game.
And a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage as well, we kind of get really into the linebacker unit where you have a lot of your attention.
Yes, and my squeeze is on number 7 this week, Arion Carter. He's a leader. He's a captain, leads the team in tackles with 32 tackles. He had 14 against UGA, with 4 of those being solo, 10 assisted tackles, a sack, a forced fumble. Everything you can ask for out of a linebacker, he's done it. But it's going to be big for him on the road to communicate. When you're at home, it's very hard to communicate on the defensive side. But during an away game, the crowd's silent. So Arion runs the defense. He needs to be aggressive. He needs to play on his toes. He needs to force some kind of turnover. When Tim Banks dials up a blitz, he needs to get home. And he's basically the heartbeat of the defense. So how Arion operates is how the defense operates. So I really look forward to number 7 making a lot of plays tomorrow, flying around the field, being in pass protection, right? I know sometimes he's gotten beat even against a team like ETSU. So I know he's been working on his craft, and this is a big opportunity to show why he is a potential draft pick for the NFL.
Yeah, when you look back to the games too, and it could be Arion Carter, what do you think it'll take for him to maybe be more effective in having these tackles that, like, there's not 8 yards of gain before he meets the maroon jersey?
Aggression.
Okay.
Aggression, yeah. I mean, I really want to see Arion just run through somebody. All season, we haven't really seen just that one grueling hit where you just watch the TV and you say, ooh,
yeah.
right, And
unfortunately, it happened to Joey Aguilar.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that he wants to play physical, but don't do that again.
Yeah, and so for Arion, he has the build, he has the physique, he has the intellect. For him, it has to go off. You got to snap and go. And I feel like this is that step that he needs to take to be a leader of the team, captain of the team, but to show why you're leading the team in tackles, right? It's not that grand to just bring somebody down when they're 8 yards down the field. Run through them, right? Force a fumble. Do something that's going to change the narrative of this game. I think he has the opportunity. And I'm squeezing him to do it.
And hopefully he rises to the occasion.
Yeah.
We'll be right back to talk a little more of the betting lines, what we're buying and selling now that VFL Todd Kelly Jr. is now a little bit more in finance. We're going to dive into that a little bit. We'll be right back.
I'm VFL Chris Brown. Experience the VW brand proudly being produced in the great state of Tennessee. Harper Volkswagen is a proud partner of Tennessee Athletics. Go Vols.
Welcome back into Live Ball, back to our buying and selling segment. Now that we have a little bit more insight into this matchup, how razor thin the margins are, why Tennessee has got to win this game, I saw a couple of lines looking here on Tuesday, and I think they could be really interesting. So, the first one is the point total for Tennessee. So, TK, would you buy or sell Tennessee has more than 36.5 points against State? If we want a couple of stats, they scored more than 41 all season. Mm-hmm. Do they score less than that, or do you take the over?
So I'm going to sell that we, score over 36.5. I can see us scoring anywhere from 31 to 35, but playing on the road, it's our first road game, SEC game. There's going to be some things that happen that, make us as Vol fans a little frustrated. But I also expect our defense to show up. So, I think we'll win the game. I think we'll be able to, slow down Shapen and, the Mississippi State offense. But I'm going to sell that we, go below 36.5 points.
And even at 36.5, you should be able to win these games. You hope Tennessee doesn't put itself in situations like Georgia where it's a high-scoring affair, and you just hope Tennessee is, perfect on offense every week.
I agree. Yeah. At the end of the day, defense has to show up. The offense has done more than necessary this season. And, though I'm selling it, I still expect us to have a good game overall on the offensive side.
For sure. Buying or selling, Tennessee scores one or more receiving touchdown in each quarter.
I'm going to sell that as well.
Okay.
I see Joey having a great game. What surprised me is Joey doesn't really tuck it and run as much. He's looking to make a throw, looking to make a play, and our receivers, Chris Brazel's leading the country and, with 6 touchdowns receiving. But to have one every quarter, as much as I want to buy that, I'm going to have to sell that away.
Chris Brazel's been so good. Yeah. And it is interesting, the comment about Joey. He really ran it a lot against Syracuse and has not done it since. Even though he had the rushing touchdown against Georgia, even in that game, he didn't run it very much.
Yeah, which is a great sign. He's athletic. He can tuck the ball, and you have a quarterback that at all costs, the last decision he's going to make is to run it. So it's good to see him that he always wants to air it out.
Yeah, for sure. And then the next one, buying or selling each team to score one or more receiving touchdowns or rushing touchdowns in each half. Tennessee has been able to do that.
They have. I think based on my first sell, though, I'm just a selling machine today.
This is so different. I know. You usually buy everything.
And I haven't been far off. So, I hope I'm wrong in these sells. However, I'm going to have to sell that.
Okay.
To have a rushing and passing touchdown in each half. I think
one or more rushing touchdowns or one or more receiving touchdowns.
For the half.
Yeah, in each half.
Okay. I'll probably buy that then.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that
because they had 2 rushing in the first half against Syracuse and then 2 passing in the second half against Syracuse. They had 2 passing in the first half against Georgia and then 2 passing in the second half against Georgia. So they have done that mostly in the pass game. But
yeah, and for both teams as well, right?
Yeah, in their Power 4 matchups.
I think with Mississippi State being at home, they're going to have that advantage, right? And the momentum's going to go their way, and they may have a big play or two, but I think we're going to get ours too. So I sold the first two. I'm definitely going to buy that one.
Yeah, okay, I love that. And before we let you go, you've got a very busy job at Merrill Lynch. Where can people find you if they want to maybe see what you do beyond just the football field?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can email me at todd.e.kelly@ml.com. I'm part of the Kegel Cross Group with Merrill Lynch, so extremely blessed to work with them. We have over 115 years of experience, so clearly you can look at me and see I'm not much of that. So blessed to be the freshman on a team of All-Americans and Hall of Famers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, TK. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, I appreciate it, Paige.
All right, we'll be right back with an insider for the Mississippi State Bulldogs and where he thinks that key matchup relies. We'll be right back.
I think it's gonna be cool, you know what I'm saying, to be in that type of environment and be in that hostile area. So I think for myself, I'm ready for it. You know what I'm saying? I love hostile environments.
And one person who is very familiar with the hostile environment at Mississippi State is one beat writer and Sam Sklar for the Clarion Ledger. Sam, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. I think it's a loaded week of college football, and honestly, if this game were any other week, I think a lot more people would be talking about it. So I think it is a pretty fascinating match, but two teams that are playing pretty well right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we heard from defensive lineman and Bryson Easton, he's like, I love hostile environments. Well, that's exactly what Mississippi State is known for. And for maybe some college fans who have not experienced Davis Wade with the sound of like tens of thousands of cowbells ringing, how would you describe what that environment is like?
It's definitely unique. It's definitely loud, definitely something I've never experienced anywhere else before. I think if you're there at the stadium, your ears will be ringing a little bit throughout the night afterward. I think it is a little more enjoyable when you're there in person than it is on TV. I know I see a lot of people online like complaining about it on the TV, but I do think it's actually a little bit more enjoyable, I guess, if you're there in person hearing it. But it is very loud and something that is very unique to Mississippi State.
I've not had the pleasure of being at a Mississippi State game to hear the cowbell. So I did a little bit of research actually earlier heading into this interview about like why are cowbells like so distracting, and it really is like the design of the cowbells, and like it's really stress inducing. It's very distracting to the opponents and can really impair them. So how much in your couple of seasons covering Mississippi State have you, Sam, noticed it distract or disrupt opponents?
It's interesting because there isn't really like a strong correlation between the cowbells and Mississippi State winning. Like Mississippi State's only had one winning season in the SEC since 1999. So there isn't like a huge correlation between the cowbells and winning. Of course, though, like after the Arizona State game, when Mississippi State does win a big game, then people start complaining about it. But last year when Mississippi State was not a very good team, people weren't really complaining about it. But I do think it is pretty advantageous. Like the rule is that you cannot ring the cowbell when the center is over the ball. So once that happens, then everyone is supposed to stop ringing their cowbells and just scream and yell like they do at other stadiums. And some fans follow the rules and some people don't. They've put out some warnings about people ringing responsibly their cowbells, to make sure that Mississippi State doesn't get in trouble, which they haven't. But, if they do abuse it, there could be some sort of repercussions, I guess, from the SEC, but that hasn't happened.
Yeah, that's interesting. They want to treat the cowbells like the in-house music that you'll hear before, the center does get over the ball, coming back from commercial break and what have you. So that is an interesting angle that I didn't know about. But I guess if we get kind of to the matchup too, and we look at Mississippi State's quarterback and Blake Shapen, it looks like he is used in all phases of the game for the Bulldogs. What have you noticed about what he's been able to do through the first handful of games that makes him so effective?
I think he's a pretty well-rounded quarterback, and like you said, can do a lot of things. He set a career high in rushing yards actually last week with 51, I believe. And but the thing is, I don't think Mississippi State really wants him to run the ball a lot because he was doing it a lot before he got hurt last year, and then ends up suffering a season-ending shoulder injury, and that's where the season kind of derailed. And so Mississippi State can't afford that. There are certain situations though when his legs are pretty useful for Mississippi State, when he'll, dive forward or lower his shoulder and get a first down when he needs. But really he's able to create and throw, or make every throw rather than make every throw that is needed of him in the offense. big plays have been a huge success for Mississippi State this season. That's how they won the game against Arizona State with Brennan Thompson connecting with Blake Shapen on a long touchdown with 30 seconds left. So, the offenses are pretty similar, I think, to Tennessee, where Jeff Lebby's coming from the Josh Heupel coaching tree. So there's a lot of similarities in that regard. But, Blake Shapen is held to a very high regard amongst his teammates. He's super well liked. And there was really no doubt that he was going to be the starting quarterback this season when he's back on a medical redshirt waiver.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned, wanting to protect the quarterback, and thankfully for them, they have skill players across the field on offense for Mississippi State. You mentioned one of the receivers and Brennan, but the other one is Anthony Evans. What have you noticed, maybe even specifically again in that Arizona State game, where it really did take those explosive plays through the air to help deliver a win for Mississippi State? What kind of challenge do you think those two wide receivers will give Tennessee, especially in the secondary?
So Jeff Lebby's offenses typically have had, at his previous schools like Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and UCF too, where there's one dominant wide receiver who gets a ton of targets and then it kind of drops off a lot. But this year it's been a little different where Anthony Evans and Brennan Thompson are both kind of at the top and then there's a big drop off. Brennan Thompson is regarded or said to be one of the fastest players in college football. It's hard to actually say whether or not that's true. But he's the speedster. He's the go ball guy. He'll be the one running down the field, and they'll certainly be taking shots with him. Anthony Evans, I think, does a little bit more as a short yardage kind of guy, but also does run down the field and hit some deep passes. So I think those two have been pretty good for Mississippi State. Mario Craver was on Mississippi State last year, and he's, I believe, first in the SEC right now in receiving yards. I haven't checked this week, but Mississippi State hasn't really had a drop off in its receiving production, despite losing Mario Craver and also Kevin Coleman Jr., who was the team's leading wide receiver last year. He's now at Missouri, but so both of those guys that they've gotten, Anthony Evans came over from Georgia, and Brennan Thompson from Oklahoma, have been pretty big for Mississippi State.
Yeah, definitely. And both of them are close to 300 yards on the year as well. And I think the other part, or the other wrinkle to Mississippi State's offense, is what they're able to do in the run game. And you could look to Fluff Bothwell as well. And he's neck and neck on the rankings with Sar Thomas when it goes to total yardage. So how much do you see the run game getting balanced? Maybe not with the quarterback, even though I think he's really electric when it comes to his ability to scramble, but their ability to use their running backs to get some really explosive plays on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Mississippi State wants to run the ball and has really been using the committee with Fluff Bothwell and Devon Booth, who was the team's leading rusher last year and came back because of the Diego Pavia JUCO ruling situation. So Fluff Bothwell had committed to Mississippi State out of the transfer portal before Devon Booth knew that he could come back. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic where Mississippi State was able to get them both. And Fluff Bothwell has had a little bit of a better start to the season. And people all know him because of his name, transferred from South Alabama, but he's really not a fluffy running back. Is kind of the irony of it all. Is he's quite the opposite of that. He's big and he's physical and will run defenders over and is actually really fun to watch. So he and Devon Booth have complemented each other very well. I believe they've combined for 7 rushing touchdowns already this season. Devon Booth last year had a little bit of a slow start, and it seems like he's having that right now, but he's still going to be heavily involved and relied upon for Mississippi State. And they've had some offensive line injuries, but it seems like that's settled down a little bit where they were starting to hold pretty much a new combination of offensive linemen every game this season, but I don't think that'll be the case for this game.
And Sam, before we let you go, if you had to look at this matchup one more time, who or what is that key matchup for you from the perspective of Mississippi State that you believe would give them the best chance to win this game?
I think the matchup I'll be watching closely will be Mississippi State secondary versus Tennessee's wide receivers and pass catchers, because the numbers say that Mississippi State's pass defense has been really, really good this season, but I am skeptical of it just because of who they faced so far. Mississippi State hasn't played a conference game yet. Arizona State was obviously the best team they've played, but Sam Leavitt, their quarterback, did not have a very good game. He threw for under 100 yards in that game, I believe, but Arizona State was able to run for 250 yards. So that was kind of why they weren't really passing a ton. So this will definitely be the the biggest test for Mississippi State's secondary, which was a concern coming into the season. The secondary was, but has exceeded expectations so far. So that's what'll be what the key is that I'll be watching.
Yeah, no, I like that one. I think it might be like a sneaky matchup too, so it could be an entertaining one for fans to look out for. Well, Sam, I really appreciate your time, and best of luck this weekend covering a really exciting matchup.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Welcome to Live Ball, presented by Harper Volkswagen. Here are your hosts, Paige Dauer and Todd Kelly Jr.
I'm VFL Chris Brown. Experience the VW brand proudly being produced in the great state of Tennessee. Harper Volkswagen is a proud partner of Tennessee Athletics. Go Vols!
Business can't afford the downtime that comes with a leaky roof. So whether you need a repair or a replacement, count on the professionals from McGuire Roofing and Construction. Your protection is our passion. We service and sell all types of roofs and have worked with some of East Tennessee's most recognized names. We have 25 years of experience and free inspection estimates, plus best in business warranties. Put an end to your roofing problems today by calling McGuire Roofing and Construction.